Pastor, doesn't science disprove the Bible?
Isn't Genesis just a fairy tale?
Is God for real? Did he really create everything in 6 literal days?
Didn't God just use the Big Bang?
Why is there death and suffering? Do you really believe the Bible?
Didn't man evolve from apes?
For answers to these questions and more, stand by for Believing the Bible.
Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed, Dr. Ken Harris, Dr. Carl Williams, and our producer, Jeremiah Rosenthal, all with the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Today, we're going to take up another really fascinating topic. Is God in control? You know, a lot of people will look around and say, well, if God's in control, why is so much bad stuff happening? Why do bad things happen to good people? And we're actually going to discuss that. If you go into the Bible itself, God gave Adam dominion. He gave us dominion over it. But a lot of people will point out and say, okay, go to Genesis chapter 3, and Adam, with his sin, with the fall, gave dominion of this planet over to Satan. Now, Jesus comes back, perhaps 2,000 years later, and reclaimed it with his sacrifice. But the question always is, how active is God? If he is in control, is he exerting control? Guys, what are your thoughts on this? Is God in control?
What do you mean by control? You have to define that term.
That is really what we want to flesh out.
I mean, Romans 8:28 clearly states that all things happened for the good, that God's plan, not for our plan. So that's where we have to look. What do we define as control? If we define control that, God's going to keep me from stubbing my toe today, and God's going to keep me safe on the road and not let me run out of gas before I get home, then that is stupid. But, it's one of those things that God is not going to make every believer have a perfect life. Jesus himself said, into each life will be tribulations. He didn't say you will have a great life. He said you're going to have tribulations. The question is, did you build your house on a foundation that will withstand those tribulations? Or did you just say, oh, God will take care of me?
And I think, too, when you look at Scripture, you've got a paradox or some tension, the sovereignty of God, and yet as human beings, we do have free will. And I love the illustration that says if you stand on a train track and you see the two rails that are separated, but if you look off into the distance, at some point they come together. And I think at some point we will understand the sovereignty of God and how it intersects with the free will. But there's a tension there. God is in control. He is sovereign. How that plays out, I don't know.
I'm going to give you some scripture that seems to be contradictory, and I want you to explain why it's not contradictory. I just went through that Adam was given dominion, and it seems like Adam turned over this world to Satan at the fall. In John 12:31, Satan is called the ruler of this world. 2 Corinthians 4:4, he is called the God of this world. So it would seem like Scripture is owning up to the fact that Satan is exerting some type of control over us and this planet. Now, the counter to that is in Isaiah 46:10. God says, my purpose will stand. Psalms 103:19, his kingdom rules over all. Proverbs 16:9, the heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious for anything. What that scripture goes on to say is, stuff's going to happen, but God will take care of it. Are these contradictory?
No. Adam's sin gave Satan dominion over this earth, but he is subservient to God. He cannot, like with the story of Job, he could only do what God allowed him to do to Job.
As we read in Daniel, where the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had a disclaimer. Can your God save you from this? Yes, he can. But even if not, we will not bow to your God.
Because it's his choice whether to interact or not.
That's correct.
One of the things that God showing that he's so far above us, when we have children, too often and badly try to totally control their lives. Now, the truth of the matter is, in America today, we're not exerting enough control over our children. So that's a problem too. But you can do the flip side. You can exert too much control. What you have to do as a good parent is you have to be able to prepare them to go out in the world and then let them go out to the world. But the kids we've got today that are living in basements with their mother have never gotten out into the world. We're not moving forward like that. God has sent us into a place that we separated from him. It was our choice. We said, at the fall, we said, God, we want to be like you, and we will try this on our own. And God, being the bright parent, stepped back and said, okay, try it without me. How well is that working? Not very well at all. You're listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed, Dr. Ken Harris, Dr. Carl Williams, and our producer, Jeremiah Rosenthal. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org. Today, we're talking about the very thorny question of, is God in control? When I asked that one, of course, there are a lot of people who've had their faith destroyed. Sigmund Freud could not get over the death of a young child and a relative. Darwin could not get over the death of his 10-year-old oldest daughter, Annie.
Charles Templeton, who was the evangelist in the time of Billy Graham and was arguably more successful in his revivals than Billy was. And he was asked the question once too often, well, why does God let bad things happen to good people? And he could not answer that question. His theological training was old earth and evolution. So he had no biblical standpoint or foundation with which to answer that question. He didn't believe in a literal Genesis chapter 3.
What's the message out of Job about that? Because Job really talks to this whole question. Job was a good man. Job was a righteous man, and yet God allowed Satan to go. Notice at the start of Job, what does Satan have to do?
He goes before God, and he has to get God's permission to do what he does to Job.
Okay. It's not God doing it. It is Satan doing it. So all the negative, evil, bad things that we see happening are Satan sponsored. Of course, we're going along with it. Our culture's going along with it. Our humanity's going along with it. But at the same time, God is in control. Satan acknowledged that. The problem is, because we asked him out of this world, he only steps back in to make sure that his will moves forward.
And, I remember hearing someone say that the sovereignty of God is a soft pillow. If I did not believe that ultimately God is in control, and I look at the loss of a daughter, a wife, I could see where it would drive you crazy, but I know and I believe that God is in control, and I trust what he does even when I don't understand it.
That's the key. That's the key. It's faith. And it can't be a faith that you feel right now, because feelings change on a second by second basis.
Very undependable. Yeah. Akin to this discussion is the discussion of Arminianism versus Calvinism. Arminianism is the idea that we have free will. Most of our Protestant religions at this point are based upon this concept that we can respond to God, that we have free will. But you have the Calvinist attitude, which the Presbyterians follow and some others follow, which says God's already determined who's going to be saved, and it doesn't matter whether you live a good life or try to respond to him. He's already picked the elect. Yeah. That there's predestination. Well, if there's predestination, then God's in control of everything, but he's just picking out of the swamp. If there's free will, then God's in control to allow us, or even to get us through all the junk in this world, to respond to him. Because one of the things we're taught in Scripture is There is so much spiritual warfare going on. There's so much junk that without God's call, without His Spirit aiding us, we could never even respond. We might have free will, but we can't get through all the junk.
It's really thought-provoking, and I think I struggle with it at least, trying to make sense of all these things. But I know God's love is real, that He's in control, and that His Spirit draws us to Himself, and I'm grateful for that.
I think there's one good scriptural passage that illustrates that, and that is in Luke chapter 23, verse 39 and following. One of the criminals who was hanged there was hurling abuse at him, Jesus, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other answered, saying, "Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, and we indeed are suffering justly?" In other words, we've sinned. "We are receiving what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." And he turns to Jesus, and he was saying, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus responded, "Truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise." I think it answers a lot of questions, including the fact that this guy, either God waited till the very last second to save this dude on the cross, or we had the free will to see what's going on and make the decision to accept Christ.
Did Jesus control when He was going to be crucified?
He did.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
He, for 3 years, He told His disciples not to tell, and He wouldn't do things in Jerusalem itself. With the raising of Lazarus and with the triumphal entry, etc., He brought it on. He controlled that. God is in control, but He chooses when to give it, because He gave dominion over this planet to us, and we gave it to Satan. But He is ready to step in, and there will be a time when He steps in and takes it over forever.
Information for creation events in our area are on our website's calendar page. For more information or to schedule a presentation, go to sabsa.org or call 210-599-7240. When you go to our website, you can click on a link to our newsletter. Our website has a link for contact information on which you can order our newsletter to be emailed to you, or you can call us. Also go to whyshouldyoubelieve.com. That is Terry's website containing articles looking at current day issues from a biblical perspective. SABSA meets the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. We are now meeting at Faith Lutheran Church just south of the corner of Jones Maltzberger and Thousand Oaks. There you will find biblical apologetics and creation science teaching found nowhere else in Bexar County, as well as the availability of books and videos on these important subjects. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to the show anytime by going to the AM 630 KSLR, the Word in South Texas website. Click on KSLR Podcast, scroll down until you find Believing the Bible. Please join us again next Saturday for Believing the Bible. I'm Scott Lane, and for Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and Ed Salzville, thanks for listening, and we hope you found today a reason to believe the Bible.